What's going on, y'all? Bud Elliott here of the Nolecast, and this is the Florida State at Florida preview, the final one of the season. Well, a bowl preview, obviously, to come. If the Noles can make it, and that is, of course, what they are fighting for. Bowl eligibility here in the final game of the season, which I guess was kind of the goal of the season. Well, like we said in the preseason, the goal, I think, really with the offseason they had was to not get fired. And, hey, mission accomplished. Awesome. Look, we're not going to talk about like future of the Nolecast stuff here. Details to come. We're not going away. We will dial back a little bit to try to match the effort and the buy-in level, I think, of the program right now. Sorry, I just got the Texas A&M game on in the background here. Two programs that are really kind of pretty much all in with varying results right now. All right, so let's talk about this Florida State of Florida game. Solo because honestly, I just travel stuff with Thanksgiving. It's not on Nile and Chuck and Graham. It's kind of more on me. Want to start by thanking our friends, of course, at the legendary team. Chad does such a great job. I think we're closing on 700 loans now through the Nolecast. We got so many passionate people here who listen to us, and always appreciative of all y'all. All right, 844 FSU loan is the number to call if you need a home loan. Those guys absolutely crush, and I think they'll just continue to crush no matter what. See rates dropping a little bit right now, so if you need a home loan, hey, might be the time for you to go out and do it. Florida comes into this game at 3-8. They're not good. They are talented in some areas, and they are pretty deficient in others. We'll go ahead and run through this thing a little bit for you and talk about a couple points that you probably want to look at tomorrow's game. Or if you're listening to this on Saturday morning, maybe for the drive up, whatever. Let's go ahead and talk about this. So we will start on offense. Florida State's offense and Florida's defense. Obviously, you get Tommy at quarterback. He is about everything we thought he would be, the good and the bad. You've had 11 games now. Well, I know he missed one with the injury, but passing is pretty underwhelming. He's a good runner, and he's banged up a lot. He can make some great throws. He also just doesn't see a lot of stuff, and balls are batted down, and there's some stuff that he really struggles with. That's just kind of what we've seen. None of that is really a surprise. They've not been able to work miracles with him. Clearly, he's better in this system than he was in Bill O'Brien's system. So, Florida State, obviously all green here on the left side pretty much for the offense. Most of these categories are really good. Some of these are not real opponent adjusted, obviously. So you did a lot of damage against to East Texas A&M and Kent State, who are two like the worst teams you could possibly have on a schedule right now. Passing game, obviously, just not completing a high percentage of balls. You're at 58.8%. That's 105th in the country. So there's a guy like Tommy is just going to struggle to play pitch and catch. But overall, like, this offense has been okay. I think if you opponent adjusted it down, if you played in a real conference that had like real defensive linemen that you faced on a regular basis, you'd probably have a lot worse numbers, but you don't. So you're able to limp along to maybe 5-6 or 5-7, 6-6, whatever kind of result you get in Gainesville. Turnovers, though, huge for this team. 104th in turnovers. You saw it again at NC State. Just empty possessions with just some, quite frankly, some silly turnovers. Obviously, the special teams turnovers just completely crushed you. Defensively, Florida is weird. So they do have some real dudes on defense. I thought Banks played his ass off against Tennessee. I know Tennessee whopped these guys, like just crushed them. But they're, in some ways, like, they have had some really good games this year. And in the past 3 games, their numbers have been awful. So Tennessee moved it up and down the field on them pretty well. Ole Miss kind of struggled with these guys some, but they still put up like 540 yards. Against Kentucky, it felt like Florida just did not care to be there at all. Like, at all. Some of the worst tackling effort, some of the worst effort as far as taking on blocks I think you will ever see. So not great there, right? Passing game-wise, everybody has thrown the ball on this team pretty well this year. Their secondary is not really good. They don't break up a lot of passes. They don't pick off that many passes. If you had a better passing game, I think you feel a little bit better going into this game than you otherwise would, given what your team does, right? So we'll have to see how that works. Going to need a really big game out of Deuce here again, just like you've kind of needed every single one down the stretch. Get Danzy involved, get Pittman involved, and those guys. See if you can pound the rock on them some. They are, for whatever reason, really good at denying the explosive play. In watching them, it doesn't really seem like that's something they do, like specifically the explosive run. Explosive, pass, occasionally they'll go ball over the top. You did see that some against Tennessee. All right, so you're going to get a variety of fronts from Florida. They do not have great edge pass rushers. They do get quite a bit of disruption from their down guys, especially on the interior. They're able to get some pressure there. Backers can run a little bit. I know they've had some injuries there, but they're not that bad, which is probably the reason why they clean up some of those runs that are successful, and they prevent them from actually turning into explosive runs. Gonna have to have an accurate game from Tommy because Florida will blow some coverages at times. Like I said, they don't communicate all that well on the back end. And look, a lot of this just comes down straight up to effort, right? Florida, the last few games, has played with crappy effort. They just have not played hard, especially defensively. Will they show up in Gainesville on senior day? I would assume kind of, but also like, how many of these guys are thinking draft? How many of these guys are thinking transfer? How many of these guys are thinking, hey, who's our new head coach, right? It's not Lane Kiffin at this point, as you saw the reports that Florida pulled out of the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes. That might be a benefit for them, honestly. Like, I know Kiffin is a good coach. He took Ole Miss to 11-1. I know it's a soft schedule for Ole Miss this year, but still 11-1 is hard to do. So obviously, like that is a good result for Kiffin. I just don't know if it makes sense to like buy out a guy for that much and then pay that much guaranteed money in today's day and age. I think I would much rather go after a coach, pay him like 6 or 7 on a 5-year deal, and if it works out, maybe give him a reasonable extension and just keep the money flowing in for players, because this is a players-based sport now. That's pretty much what I got for you on that one. Got to get Banks blocked. Got to make sure, like, if Florida shows up, you will have a hard time blocking these guys at times. You're going to have to use some trickeration. It seems to be a big-time Gus Malzahn game. You hope he's dialed in and focused on this game plan. You hope this team's head is in a good place, right? They've had the extra day off, obviously with the loss at NC State, but also, I mean, like that NC State loss, that's got to be pretty damn deflating. But then again, Florida just lost by 1 million at home to the Vols, so that's not great for their motivation either. Also want to tell you about our friends at Congruity. Congruity HR Solutions do a great job with all of your business needs, HR, payroll, medical insurance, whatever you need. Congruity is there to help you with the synergy of your business. Really excited to see what you can do with Congruity. More than 10 Nolecast businesses have decided to partner with Congruity, as well as all the business, obviously, Graham has sent them over the years. So Florida State's defense and Florida's offense. For as bad as we think FSU's defense is, and at times this year it certainly has been rough, but also it's been improving somewhat. It's better than last year's defense, I think, overall. But you can argue that either way if you really want to. I think last year's defense had a lot more quit in them. All right, so Florida's offense has been pretty much just an absolute disaster, right? Lagway, to me, has never looked correct or healthy all season. We know he was pretty banged up during the offseason, didn't get a real offseason with his team. I got a lot of heat on cover 3 when I was like, I don't know why in the world this guy doesn't just sit out the year and come back healthy. Like, he looks tentative. He looks protective. I'm not saying he's still hurt, but he doesn't look right to me. He does not look like the guy who was just absolutely on fire last year against Ole Miss and against Georgia, right, and against LSU. Like 3 pretty damn good defenses last year when he just torched those guys at various times. And he has just never really looked right this season at all. So I don't know how much he's going to play, if it's going to be him, if it's going to be Tramel Jones, the one-time FSU sign who came in against Kentucky. I mean, obviously he's a true freshman on the road for an interim coach. Not exactly a good situation for Tramel. Tramel was always a cool kid. I mean, like not any shade there, but just didn't look very good in that ball game. So we'll see who plays for Florida. Also, I don't think they released an injury report since this is a non-conference game, but there are a lot of guys who were out last week for the Gators, right? So On defense, I mean, McCray's been out obviously for a while. Johnson, Gates, the other DB, Jacoby Jackson, running backs, stayed out. Rod Kearney's been out. Dallas Wilson and Eugene Wilson both were out. Vernell Brown was a game time decision for them. Mekhi Burrows, a pretty damn good D lineman. He was out against Tennessee, and then George Gums, one of their better edge rushers, was out as well. I will say the running back that they have is really damn good, and their offensive line is still pretty darn good. So this is going to be something here to watch. This is pretty important, and I think, like, if you look at this, Florida State's run defense has been a bit of an Achilles heel from a success rate standpoint, but FSU has done a good job of taking away the explosive rush this year. Florida's run game is about the only thing this offense does well at all. They do, when they run it, tend to stay ahead of the chains. The pass game has just been an absolute disaster. They don't complete balls. I mean, you look at, like, they're better than Castellanos, but like Castellanos is basically a running back playing quarterback, right? But their EPA per drop back, as Chuck put this chart together for us, they're 119th in the country. They don't hit explosive plays in the pass game. When they do, it's like the occasional deep ball or some screen stuff. It's not a really well-designed passing game. It's something Florida fans were like, hey, Billy Napier, please give up play calling. Like, your offense is really nothing special. Like, it's not something we really like. It's just not good. So ultimately here, can FSU gang up on the run and make Florida pass the ball a lot? That's going to be the key, because they do still have a really good back. The offensive line at times still moved it pretty well on Tennessee with the run game. The pass game is just an absolute, like, abject disaster. I mean, it's literally worse than FSU's passing game overall. Like, not by a ton, but certainly like it's not as good as FSU's passing game. And it says something, because FSU's a spread option football team they do have an NFL receiver in Deuce who helps quite a bit. So if you're the Noles and you go out there and you gang up against the run, I think you've basically done your job. And at that point, you're kind of just flipping coins, and they're probably weighted coins in your favor, to be frank here, to see if Florida can actually complete passes on you, if they care, if they show up. So much of this preview, though, guys, is just who shows up. Who cares? I'm not saying like who cares, like who cares, but like literally, like, which team, if either team cares to play this game, that's kind of got to decide it, right? Like, do you think Florida cares? Do you think Florida State cares? I don't know. Like, do you think the players are happy that Norvell's back? I think there's mixed opinions, to be honest. I think some guys definitely wanted to change. I think some guys definitely wanted him to stay. So I'm not going to sit here and say 100% they wanted him gone, 100% they want him to stay. I don't know where either team's head is at in this. Special teams, both teams are kind of a mess. Honestly, like, Florida still struggles with special teams penalties. FSU struggles to catch a punt at all. Field goal has been very up and down for the Noles. This is such a hard game to preview, because, like, I could see either team winning by like 20 ultimately, and that would just involve, hey, one team cares and the other team does not. I guess I have to make a prediction here. It's a rivalry game, as Tom says on Cover 3. Throw the record books out, I guess. Florida's favored by a point, so that, I mean, if you assume like full home field advantage for the Swamp, which I don't, because it's a 4:30 game, and I assume it's not going to be that packed. Then you're looking at like 3.5. It's probably like one of the very toughest atmospheres to play in the sport. But again, who knows? One of your harder road games of the year, atmosphere-wise. Clemson would have been the other. NC State's a pretty hard place to go play, actually. So when you watch this, I don't know who shows up. Like, can you really trust FSU on the road? That it's like 2 calendar years since FSU's won a road game, right? I got no idea on this one, honestly. Like, I think for a preview prediction here, I have to give one. It is a Florida State podcast, after all. I'll go Florida. I'll go Florida 24, FSU 21. I can't trust this team to win on the road. I don't know. I'm also not going to say we're going to be here to break this game down at the final gun. I'm not really sure how many people care about that anymore. Probably talk a little more big picture stuff. Talk about signing day. Which of these 3 stars you're getting are dudes who like you should be kind of excited about just for the prospect of getting them maybe on a multi-year rev share contract and getting them locked in, regardless of who's going to be coaching them, who's going to be scouting them, whatever. We'll have to do a bigger pod coming up about some of the changes, whether we think they can work, whether we think they're just fakery, and it's much easier to sell a front office changeover for like $2 or $3 million than it is to pull the trigger on a $50 million buyout plus assistants and whatnot. Speaking of assistants, will those guys be here next year? Where their heads at? I don't know. Anyway, this has been the Nolecast for the Florida State at Florida preview. Your guess is as good as mine. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Be safe on the roads. We'll see you back when we see you.